check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello, Michael Moore.
Hey, Nicole, you are the most aggressive producer ever. 3, 2, 1.
Go. Yeah, right before that,
Whoa.
I cleared my throat right before that, but you know how normally you're like, I was like, oh. Let's make sure we get all that. We need all of it,
Yeah.
A big deal.
COVID on your mic there.
Well, speaking of, like, this is the
Lord,
never-ending COVID story, so we're gonna have to get into it. This is gonna be the title of this episode as well, is the never-ending story. Remember that movie? Is that 80s?
Yes. How
it
can
was
I
so
not remember that
good.
movie?
Dude, Atreyu.
You what?
Atreyu. That was
I don't remember like that.
uh,
It was the dumbest movie ever. But listen,
What?
I was watching an episode of Us last night because one of our audience members wanted to watch an episode, and I was like, come on, let's just go ahead and watch it. We happen to be lying in bed together, so
I wonder which audience member it was.
it doesn't matter. I got many that want to lie in bed with me. But listen, it was probably Esther. But listen, you had said in that particular episode that how did you put it? I believe LA and San Francisco need to be bombed into the ocean.
Not bombed, just blown. Just blow them into the water. Blow them. Yeah.
Blown in.
And
Okay.
by the way, I live in LA, and I'm willing. If I'm going to say this, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. My kids.
I'm
like
not.
I said, my kids
I'm
can
not.
go somewhere, but if it's for the greater good.
Your
Michael
kids
Moore,
and Mike.
You won't do this for the greater good, Michael Moore?
Get bombed into the ocean?
Yes.
No.
Well, then you're not a very good citizen.
I'm not. I'm not. If that's what's required to be a good citizen, I am the worst citizen ever.
It
because
is.
I want
It is.
2
And
weeks advance
you
notice.
are selfish.
You mean I like to live?
Yeah, you're selfish. You're selfish. You won't do it for your society. So you are selfish.
Die?
It's for the greater good, Mike.
Just
It's for the greater good.
you mean
That's
so
why
a
we do
bunch-
everything. That's why. That's it.
Wait a minute. You realize that you're saying the greater good is bombing the People's Republic of San Francisco and Los
And LA,
Angeles
and LA.
into oblivion
Blow
because
it
they
into
are
the ocean.
2 of the strangest communities
Not
ever.
strangers. They're the extremists. NYC can go too, but I don't live there, so they can do whatever they want. But
You literally have killed off like 60% of the United
this
States.
is a war, Michael. It's casualties happen in a war. It's for the greater good. Yes, you.
General Jurgens.
Yes. Admiral. I prefer Admiral of Yes.
Admiral Jurgens.
Yes.
Who are we at war with?
Ourselves.
Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm not at war with me. So can you give me 2 weeks advance notice of this said bombing so that I can, move to a safe place?
Granted.
Thank you. Bomb
And
away.
also, that's how all of policy should be. Like, hey, I'm good. I want to live the life the way I want. So, no, but it's for the greater good. You're selfish. You're a selfish piece of shit.
So funny enough, as well as I feel like I know you, are you joking right now? Or are you...
Obviously, Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
okay. Woo! I was like, man.
This can go right along with our last episode. Whoa! Now you better call the cops and tell them that I said this, because if I blow San Francisco and LA into the water, and you knew about it and you didn't say it,
Los Angeles, San Francisco,
right into the water. I'm going to blow them right into the water.
No, I have it recorded. Yeah. So I don't want to be responsible for anything that she says or does.
Now you're safe. Now you're safe.
Thank you. So you can expect someone at your house, I don't know, probably in the next few minutes.
Yes.
Listen, San
Yeah.
Francisco and LA and New York are definitely a little, they
Extreme,
can be
extreme right now.
okay. I mean, we'll just go with your word, extreme. But those places are also full of very critically thinking,
No.
reasonable, kind of down the
Oh,
middle kind of people. I consider myself one of them. And I think there's a few of us here, like, I think we like LA and San Francisco and New York because, you know, they're not in the middle of nowhere and there's beaches and mountains.
hey. You're talking too much sense. This is not about logic and sense. This is about for the greater good, Michael. There is no logic and reason allowed here. Don't you understand how it works? I get to decide. I get to decide what we need to do for the greater good. And then I get to tell you what it is. And then you have to do it or you're selfish.
I got to tell you, when you and I came together to start Highly Uncircumcised some like 60 episodes ago now, you never informed me of, your Hitler-esque.
Surprise.
I need a new contract.
Can you believe we've done like almost 60 episodes? Look at us.
We've been on now for what, like 6? No, I'm sorry. I missed your
May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. This is our 8th month.
Wow. What are we going to do for our 1-year anniversary or our 100th episode? Because I feel like our 100th episode would come before our 1-year anniversary. No, because we've slowed way down on how many we produce.
Math. I don't do math right now. But anyways, I think we should celebrate for sure. But before we do that, let's discuss the never-ending COVID story, because it is never-ending here. And this is super interesting because I just read an article of someone I follow on social media. He just wrote an op-ed in The Atlantic saying that no one really cares about COVID where he lives, which is so great, right? Like, it's so great. I forgot the city, but it's basically anywhere outside of San Francisco, LA, Minneapolis, anywhere outside of the extremely blue cities. They don't give a fuck. Like, they just live. And I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that here, but it's only getting worse. Our governor just instituted a statewide mask mandate for the next month. Like, get the fuck out of here.
You want to know what's hilarious about this? Before you continue to go on, you need to have some hilarity introduced into your life because you're just so serious nowadays. Listen.
I'm a very serious person, Michael Moore.
You sat at lunch last week and you just had this, like, you're very serious. And I was like, dude, where is Nicole Schmergens? But anyway, listen, I didn't even realize there wasn't a mask mandate. So here's what I realized in the governor saying there's a statewide mask mandate. I thought there always was one.
Because LA.
That's why it just dawned on me. That's why you were like, I'm going to Orange County to do my shopping and all this kind of stuff. Because I was like, wait, why is Nicole always touting Orange County? Because as far as I know, Orange County is still California. But you were like, yeah, they're relaxed there. It wasn't because they relaxed. They didn't have a mask mandate. We have a mask mandate. I didn't know that. I feel stupid. Go ahead.
Well, number one, you are stupid. And then number two,
Thank you.
Number two,
uncircumcised. We'll see you later.
Number two, I have learned so much more about our local and state and country governance than I ever had before. And I've become quite vocal about it because I feel like it matters to me, right? And to me and my family and the future of my children. So this is a very big issue for me, not to mention it's never been allowed to die. And none on the top of that, people are like, well, people are dying. Like, how there's still people dying. And it's like, and you can't at all input reason into the conversation because people are dying. And you can't say, well, here's a cost benefit analysis. It's like, you take a level of risk with every step that you take in life, literally walking down and up steps, swimming in a pool, driving in your car. You have to understand that you conceptually understand those risks and you take them, right? Cost benefit analysis, whether you've actually thought through it or not, you have accepted those risks. COVID has to be another one. It has to be.
Can I inject some data into this right now? I mean, I'm with you on everything that you're saying. I mean, you literally take risks, literally waking up, just
Yes.
waking up. The
Getting out of
risk
bed.
gets started. Yeah,
Getting out of bed.
the risk gets started. I heard, I think I want to say yesterday, because they were talking about the whole statewide, mask mandate, that there are 700 people hospitalized in LA County due to COVID.
And how many people are in LA County?
No, please stop. Please stop. You sound way too intelligent right now. I need you to stop. I need to say what I have to say, and then you can sound smart. Okay. I'm giving a stupid point of view here today. Okay. There are 700 people hospitalized in LA County right now with COVID. Now, this came from the mainstream media, so we know that even if this was exaggerated,
I have to inject one more thing. Sorry. With COVID, not from COVID. I have to just inject that. Okay, carry on. Logic, reason. I know it's terrible.
You know what? I don't know if I can take this level of intelligence today. I'm really going to need you just to calm down a minute, because I have a couple points that are going to be real
back.
Dumb.
Reel it back.
Yeah, there's a couple points that are going to be real dumb, and then I want you to take it and make it sound really smart. Okay. There are 700 people in LA County hospitalized with COVID, from COVID, cometh hence COVID, whatever, however you want to put it. Okay. There are some 30 plus million people that live in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County happens to be the most populous county on earth. I don't know if you knew that, but it's literally the most populated county on earth.
I didn't know that, but that's a fun fact.
That's a fun fact, which you are no longer allowed
populous
to
means like the most per space. What does that mean? Because there's got to be cities.
There are more human beings in LA County than there are human beings in any other county. In the world.
Because I heard like Mexico City has more than
Mexico City is the most populated,
but not
city,
county.
Not county. Yes.
Okay.
So, not being the super math whiz that I am, I can't even come up in my mind quickly with what percentage of LA County that is. But I'll tell you this much.
Shall I get a calculator? Hold on.
Would you? It's far less than 1% of 1%. Which I've been using.
700 with COVID. And for the distinction for people who still don't understand that, there's with and there's from. And the vast majority of people
I need you to not speak on this right now, because I'm actually.
Oh, we're not getting there? We're not there.
No, please, just do the math real quick, and then I promise we'll move.
700 divided by 30.
I think it's 35 million, but let's just go with 30, because I know it's 30.
Let's just go with 30.
Yeah.
It would be, follow me here with all these zeros, 0.00002%.
That's 5 zeros and a 2.
That's 4 zeros.
Is that 4?
0.0002% are in hospital with
no.
COVID.
Let's just go with what they're saying.
I can't. The logic comes out. I can't.
Please, for the sake of all of us who are not smart like you, okay? Let us just say.
All right. Okay. Let's say
they are giving us facts. I'm talking about data, right? That's the real deal.
These guys are dying of COVID. Let's say that.
They have instituted a statewide mandate for the most populated state in the union for 0.0000233% of the people. I don't have anything else except I want to say this, and then I'm just going to let you just rock out, okay? You should just take your hat off and let your hair roll today.
Rock out with your cock out.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gonna say it. We're a family-friendly show on every other.
We're highly uncircumcised.
Tuesday. Yeah. Listen, I just learned today, and you have to forgive me for this, okay? Because you've actually explained this to me before, and I think maybe I just let it go, because
Well, I want to say something about that. Is that sometimes you can't hear things till you're ready. And that's the whole point about all of this stuff.
Because I heard it today. I was sitting in the shower and I was actually trying to relax. I was like, I just need to relax, come from the gym, just need to let the muscles relax. So listening to a radio program, and here's what they said, which got me all tight everywhere again. And you realize this, but I'm going to preface this by saying, do you realize that you can literally get into a car accident right now on this super rainy Tuesday, which it is here in California, for those of you who are not sure what day it is. It's very rainy Tuesday. There's a lot of car wrecks. We don't know how to drive in the rain in California, especially Southern California.
There's a drizzle, and so car accidents are
drizzle,
through the
and
roof.
people just start
Through
sliding. Yeah, just start sliding down the street with drizzle. Listen, do you know that you can be in a car accident and be hospitalized and take a COVID test, come up positive for COVID? And do you know that you are in the hospital because of COVID and not the accident? I just found this out this morning. And before you say anything, because I know you got a lot, it's for the stupid here today, okay? Do you realize that, no, go ahead. I'm gonna let you take it.
Well, you've explained, and maybe you didn't even realize what you're explaining. That's what with versus from COVID means. It means we have set up this system whereby hospitals, and the reason why they do this is because they get reimbursements for every COVID patient they take care of, right? So we have set up this system where everybody gets money for treating COVID. So the system is too big to fail. But you wonder, well, why would hospitals do this? Why would they take somebody who came in for a car accident and say they have COVID? Because they have incentive to do it. Every COVID patient, and this is fact, every COVID patient they treat, they get a reimbursement of $13,000. So when you go to the hospital, per patient, when you go to the hospital, they are going to test you for COVID. And if you're there multiple days, they are going to test you every day because it's beneficial for them. People are like, oh, that's fraud. That's fraud. No, if you think about it, like they have, a legitimate reason. Oh, we had to do all these protocols for COVID. And so it all looks legit, except for that's fucking not. Because if you took away those reimbursements today, this shit in the hospital would stop. 100% it would stop. But they have these reimbursements, not only $13,000 for every COVID positive patient, $37,000 for any patient that goes on event, right? So these are things. Do
people still go on ventilators?
Yes.
I mean,
these are things.
Still?
Yes, these are things that you have to consider. We've set ourselves up to fail. We set ourselves to be in this thing forever, and people like me are screaming from the sidelines saying, "This is ridiculous." And people can't see and they can't hear, even if you say it, like you say, you couldn't hear me say it before, but this is what with COVID means. It means you came to the hospital for some other reason. You didn't have symptoms. You didn't even know you had COVID. Maybe you got it while you were in the hospital on day 3, but now you've tested positive. You are now a COVID case, even though it doesn't affect you. The really fucking pissy part that will really make you mad is that they do deaths the same way. You died in a car accident, but you're COVID positive. That's a COVID death. So that's what I'm saying. It's with.
Yeah, but what's the motivation in describing someone's death as a COVID related death? Like, you're not getting reimbursed for.
No, but again, it just goes along with their chart. Goes along with their chart, which they were COVID positive in their chart. So now it's recognized as a COVID death. And so
it needs to be said, by the way, that where I got this information from is absolutely positively probably considered one of the most mainstream media outlets in the country. So this wasn't what I'm telling you. This wasn't like propaganda or something. This was literally just this station reporting. They had come to learn.
This is
fact. That you can actually get into a car accident. That was their example. You can get into a car accident, go to the hospital because you got in a bad car accident, get tested, have COVID, and now you are a COVID patient opposed to
if you die, you're a COVID death. Now, by the way, they will also list, they have stats of this. In some states are different than others. This is a problem with our country, is that every state has randomly different stats, not to mention they can be manipulated by people, and they have been, but they have states that actually list them out. So they'll list, COVID deaths. But they also list what went along with it. Some of them are drowning, car accident, shooting victim, but they had COVID at the time, so they're listed as a COVID death. Of course, it also lists along what they actually died from. So you can see that. You can literally see that. But the problem is these are also COVID deaths. These are also COVID patients. There are states. So when you die within 28 days of a positive COVID test in vast majority of our states in this country, you are considered a COVID death. So again, they still keep track of what you died of, but you're still a COVID death. Now, the even worse part is that there are states such as New York, where in order to call you a COVID patient, they don't even have to have a positive test. They can just assume you have COVID. This makes me think about all their massive numbers in the beginning, because again, they've created this system where they get 13,000 for every COVID positive patient. It leaves much to be desired for the way to run a system, right? Administrators in hospitals, I think we talked about this, administrators in hospitals have grown like 80% in the last 20 years. Administrators, what is their job? To create money for their hospital, right? The administrators have grown, the growth has grown exponentially, while the doctors' growth has grown slightly, but not like that. And you can see this our medical and health care has become a business, a very big business. And that's where COVID came in. And that's where this with versus from, right?
So,
and so
how does a hospital sort of ethically assume that you have COVID?
I don't know.
How do they do that?
I don't know. And I don't know, to be fair, I don't know if it's still a rule, but that was a rule specifically in New York. And I don't know what other states, but they had the ability to just assume. So if you presented with symptoms, they could assume you had COVID and treat you as such, especially in the beginning when they were quarantining everybody and not letting family in and whatever. So there has been some really fucked up stuff for all of this COVID, which I that's why I've been fighting against it since the dawn of time. Imagine what the actual death count would be when we could first just remove all the for sure non-COVID deaths, right? Drownings, suicide, car accident. Let's just remove all those. It will be way smaller. And then consider the fact that all the rest of them, 90% had comorbidities, which could easily have been anything else they died from. So, I mean, this whole thing has been treated really, really bad, really bad.
So the other thing that I would have to add to the pot of, this doesn't make sense to Mike things is that they are not, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't make sense. It makes sense from their point of view, I guess, but they're literally now saying you're not even fully vaccinated until you have 4 shots. So even someone like me who has had both shots, both Pfizer shots, I now just got pushed into the basket of you're not even fully vaccinated. Like, who decides at what point you don't have to get another shot to be, how do I put it? I was gonna say like a normal human being, but you're just gonna continue to tell us we have to get shot after shot after shot.
If we all do
they
it,
just say, you're allowed to die if you want to die. Like, let's say COVID is really horrible. I don't even want to argue whether COVID is horrible or not, or any of that. That argument is so tired now. Who cares? Listen, but at what point do the people who make decisions for us say, like, people kind of have the right to die, as long as I'm not spreading some communicable disease and not letting people know that I have it, right? Because there were already laws in place long before COVID, right? It was against the law to have sex with someone if you had AIDS and not let them know that you had AIDS. If they could prove that you didn't express to them that you were HIV positive, you literally could go to prison for a good long time.
By the way, San Francisco just is trying to, or they have actually repealed that law. Blow it into the ocean. Blow it into the ocean.
With HIV or just any disease?
HIV, yes. I saw an article.
I'll tell you what, and it may irritate you or whatever, but I can kind of understand that, and I'll tell you why. Because, and not to get all off into that, but HIV now can literally be treated to the point where there's not even a trace amount of it in your system. So yeah, I don't think it's horrible to have some sort of like law or something that says you need to give somebody heads up if you have HIV, but it's not the 80s anymore, I guess. It's not the 90s when people were, it was literally a death sentence. Like now it's literally more treatable than herpes.
I don't
So
think
I kind of
any,
get it.
even if it is deadly, I don't think it's meant for our government to make the laws. I think these are moral decisions that our society members have to
Right.
make.
But I guess what I'm just saying is like I can see both sides of like why you know, because there's a stigma, of course, right? Maybe they're like trying to do away with the stigma of being HIV positive, right? You
I
don't have
think,
to
well, I
announce it
think
to
there,
people.
yeah, I think that, you know, if it was a death sentence, that you knowingly had sex with somebody, knowing that they could get something that
Right.
that they died from, then, you know,
That's a
then that's
criminal
where
act
I
in
think
my
that's
mind.
where the question came in. But yes, going
Right.
back to this, that was the whole way that they came up with all of this, right? It's for the greater good. It's for society. The problems and all these other issues weren't even looked at. That number one, people aren't dying to the numbers are saying. And when you really look at the numbers and what's happening, they're not, right? Number two, you see now how the headlines have shifted everything to be fear. We talked about this. There's a reason for that, because now they can sell more stories. They love war, they love fear, they love terror. Everything is an extreme, terrible incident. Everything is in a crisis with the media, because that's how they sell stories. So that's how, you know, COVID got into this. This is great for them, right? They can then just keep ramping up the fear. Now, our political leaders who continue to carry this shit on, I tend to believe that somehow they are making some kind of, their donors are allowing them to make money from this. So consider our own Gavin Newsom. At the same time that he instituted a vaccine mandate for children, which by the way is now being repealed in court, or at least being extended. So they have decided not to institute it or rethink it until next fall. But this is because there's many court cases going on because of this. But the same time he mandated this vaccine for children in school, he also literally went to court for the prison security labor union to help them not have to have a mandate. Do you know why? Because they gave him $1.75 million. This is actually factual. You can find it online. None of this stuff is made up.
Yeah, I actually heard, I think today actually, that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of who was it? Someone not having to mandate the vaccine. Some employer, or maybe it was even a government entity. Man,
a lot of them are going down. They're going down everywhere, including our own. But the whole point was that, you know, why, how does all of this happen? And it ends up being an incredible system of really greed, you know, and that's how it gets taken out of hand. And now our cities, the blue cities, have to see the worst of it, because on top of the greed of professionals who are leading the policy, there's actual people within these cities, unfortunately, that really bought into the mass hysteria and are really pushing. Now they're clamoring for more policy. We need it because we're not safe, because they believe the shit that they're spewing without really understanding the facts and data behind what they're saying, which is what they're not showing, and not accurately anyways. So now here we are with a never-ending COVID story in our city. Whereas many other states in our very own same country, literally the article I just read, they don't give a shit about COVID. They don't care. They've been living normally since last year, since the beginning. And it makes me sad for my children. And that's why I do this, is like, if it's up to them, so they just instituted this mask mandate again, statewide now. If it's up to them, they will keep our children masked in school forever. And I won't have it.
Why do they want us?
Because, well, the thing is, it's a self-perpetuated machine, you know. Now they started this. Now the people in the city feel scared and feel like this is actually stuff that is for the greater good. And
nobody feels that way anymore. Nobody feels that way.
Yeah. You trust me, I know. I'm talking with parents who feel that way. Parents who are scared to death. Parents who already got their kids vaccinated and are scared until they can get them a booster. Parents who are, because they believe this stuff. They have, they're still hysterical, and they're vaccinated and boosted themselves, and they still wear 2 masks. There are those people out there. There's a reason why our governance can get away with this stuff, because there are these people out there. But the sad thing is, they're feeling this way based on shit that's spewed from the media and our government that's false?
You know, I don't a lot of times in my life find myself overwhelmed with an inability to even articulate a feeling. I mean, I'm usually pretty good at letting someone know how I feel or what I think. I'm so just ill-equipped to even explain to you just how frustrated and ridiculous I think this has all just become. I feel like, honestly, if COVID was even killing people at the rate they kind of want you to feel it's killing people, at this point, it's almost still not worth it just based on the psychology of society as a whole to continue to treat it like they're treating it. Meaning, even if COVID was as deadly as they kind of wanted you to believe it is, and I'm telling you right now, you know this, I don't feel that it's nearly as deadly as they're trying to purport that it is. And I feel this way because I've done research on my own and I'm just blown away by the actual numbers. And we even gave some numbers at the beginning of the show about LA County. Even if it was killing in the exact fashion that they are trying to make us feel that it's killing people, we are absolutely taking the air out of society.
Absolutely.
It is a gut punch now to the entire happiness, joy, normalcy, connection, employment, finances, the human condition. It is absolutely taking a punch to the gut on just the amount of time they are letting this linger. If this was the bubonic plague and you walked outside and you literally had a 1 in 5 or 4 chance of dying, everything that you and I are talking about right now, I would consider to be ridiculous. Like this is fringe stuff that we're talking about.
And again,
we are literally talking about
it.
Less than 1% of 1% of our country. Our country. It's just not killing people, and it's not. And maybe we should stop even just saying it's just not killing people. It's not even adversely affecting people. Hospitalizations, symptoms. It's not even adversely affecting people anywhere near. They wanted Omicron to be just this huge new variant, Delta to the third power. It's going to get you. And they can't even, in all honesty and candor, tell you anything except it's not really all that bad. We're not seeing a lot of, people who are even symptomatic because of Omicron. They can't even fudge it. Like, it's like, at what point are people just going to say, like, Pfizer and Moderna and J&J and AstraZeneca and all these pharmaceutical companies have made enough for the calendar year? They made enough for their shareholders. The CEOs got their $50 million bonus or $100 million bonus. Everybody's made enough. Let's move on.
Well, that's the thing. That's what happens when something's too big to fail. No, now imagine. By the way, speaking of Omicron or Omicron, however you say it, just today I tweeted out something. I said in Israel, 54 out of 67 Omicron cases are vaccinated and boosted. 54 out of 67 fully vaccinated, which over there means vaccinated and boosted. So they've had 3 vaccines. This is where, and of course, the news that you won't see in the mainstream media is that everybody initially, when they initially found the first Omicron cases, they were all unvaccinated travelers because it had to be travelers and they all had to be vaccinated. And I said, anyone have any questions yet about our booster program? How about any questions about the entire treatment of the pandemic? I was like, no, nothing yet. I'm like, please wake up, please. And this is the thing, and everyone will wake up when they're ready, and they'll hear things when they're ready to hear it. And many people are not. Someday, some people never will. But it's not being flippant with people that die with this to explain the actual reality of it. Death is sad. It really is. And if you died of this, it really fucking sad. But I am not being flippant about those deaths to explain that what we are doing is way more harmful to our society than allowing this virus with a 0.6 IFR, 0.6% IFR, infection fatality rate, which means 0.6% of every person that gets it will pass away. By the way, The vast majority of them are over 80. They're already past the average life expectancy. Not that I'm not being flippant with old age. I'm not saying I don't value old age, but you have to consider these things from a perspective of how do you go forward in a society where you're literally unable to take any risk? How do you move forward?
The thing is, and I feel like, and maybe it's just because I know us, I know you outside of this podcast, and you know me outside of this podcast, and we know each other outside of the podcast. We both know that we are in no way, shape, or form flippant about death. I think it's sad if one person died of this unknown disease that they had just found out, we're going to call it COVID, and one person died over the last 2 years. I would feel horrible for that person. I'd feel horrible for their family that had to deal with them dying of that disease, that one person, right? You can't look at this emotionally in terms of people are dying, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're looking at it in terms of people dying, then we still have our priorities so far out of whack, it's ridiculous. Because do you know how many women, just women, die of heart attacks every year? And I'm talking about premature. We're not talking about the 70s and 80s. I'm talking about women in their 40s and 50s and should be pretty much in their prime of life. I don't know if you know, but heart disease is the number one killer of women.
I know how many total
this
in the US. I don't know just women, but it's like 650,000 people in the US every year.
And I actually feel like I heard more than that, but
probably now after sitting inside for a year, right? Probably way worse now.
But here's my point. My point is simply this: that if we're going to get all in a hullabaloo about numbers, right? And we just remove emotion, we just look at it numerically, right? More people die in car wrecks yearly. Are we gonna stop driving? Like, are we going to alter how we get to and from different locations to the point where we're literally like, almost no one can move about freely? Are we going to ban high carb diets, because we know now that they cause plaque in arteries far more than any sort of like saturated fats or anything like that. We know that sugar is far worse to the human system than fat or anything else that we tried to, get out of our diet in the 80s and 90s and all this kind of stuff. Are we going to ban guns? Right? Far more gun deaths. And if you put our gun deaths on a scale with the rest of the world almost doesn't show up on the scale with us. You almost can't see them on the scale with us. My point is simply, why do you want to alter society's ability to live somewhat normally, some semblance of normalcy, so far that you can't even recognize society anymore for something that, if you look to your right and look to your left and there were two people standing there, both of them would still be alive if they actually got COVID. I'm talking mathematically. You'd have to be in a room with 1,000 people before you would actually know someone. And I don't mean literally, because obviously there are people out there that, including me, that know someone who died supposedly from COVID, right? But you'd have to be in a room with 1,000 people before you'd even have one of those people pass away from COVID. But something like 100 of them or 90 of them would pass away from, cardiovascular disease or cancer, or again, gun deaths or car accidents. Do you know how many people in that room of 1,000 people would have to raise their hand to represent how many people died of, again, one of those things? And then how many people would have to raise their hands to represent the people that died from COVID? I am in no way, shape, or form diminishing the hurt and pain that comes with death, especially the death of someone that you love. I've had very close people to me pass away. I know what it feels like. Guess what? It didn't even matter to me what they passed from. They were passed. So it just hurt that they died. But I know that they wouldn't want the entire world, altered based on what they passed away from. And maybe I'm making it too Maybe I'm
Do you know
coming
what
off
you're?
too
Do you know what you're
insensitive.
No. Do you know what you're doing? You're running a cost benefit analysis on how to move forward as a free and just and good society. That's something that was never done, because all that was discussed was that this was the plague and everyone's going to die. And so everybody has to do what we say, and it's going to be more and insane restrictions. And then on top of that, people used it for their own advantage to even prolong it. We're still, even though cases are way down, we're still instituting a mask mandate here. All of this stuff were what people like me discussed from the beginning. You have to, like we discussed last week about, you can't run judiciously based on emotion. You have to use logic and reason. And the way this was allowed to carry out as far as it's gone is that there's been far too much emotion-led policy. Because someone's grandma died, and again, sounds flippant, I don't mean to be, but because someone's grandma died, we now are affecting the future, our current and future lives of our children. We're forcing them to be vaccinated with an untested substance. It's not even done with clinical trials for another 3 years. Well, 2023 is the initial ending of the clinical trials, if you even trust their bullshit trials that they run. But they still won't even be done until 2023, phase 3 for children. We're force injecting them with this stuff. We're making them wear a mask all day. People are like, it's just a mask. No, fuck you. I don't want that society for my children. Not to mention, there's many children out there who have hearing issues, who are autistic, who really, it hinders them greatly. And then maybe there's many that it's no big deal. Great. But overall, is it better for society or worse? We know it's way worse. We know that double the amount of suicide attempts have come up in children. We know that these are what cost benefit analysis are about, and we have never, ever done it. It's all been emotion-led policy, and now we're still here 2 years later.
And even with all of that you just said, which is profoundly enough to reverse course and go the other way, we have a whole generation of children who we now know for sure are behind in education.
Yeah. Oh, huge.
No matter how good your connection to the internet was and your ability technologically to interface with the kids and your school and all this kind of stuff. And by the way, my home was probably at the upper echelon of technology, because that's what I did for 20 plus years. So my kids never had issues unless the actual school system itself had issues, which they happen to have all the time, right? You still are behind. We know that kids need to be in the classroom, engaging with each other, engaging with their teachers, raising their hand, exchanging ideas. There's a whole generation of children that are behind educationally because of this. And I have to say it again, if COVID was the type of thing where you go outside and there was a 1 in 5, 1 in 4 chance of you dying because of because of catching it, my whole approach to this would be 100% different. 100% different.
And again, I want to point out that if that was the case, none of this would be necessary. Again, why it's so confusing, why there's so much debate, why there's so much divisiveness, because the media and our government, to some extent, have portrayed it as that literally, if you go outside, you're going to be 1 out of 5 who's going to die from COVID. And that's not even close to the case. And and also the issue is, if that were true, I mean, we probably wouldn't even have news going on, because the news characters themselves would be at home. Nobody would be going outside. We wouldn't need policy to save ourselves. We could see people dropping on the streets. We would take any injection that they offered. We don't give a shit. And they wouldn't sell it. They wouldn't sell it. They would just do it.
Even the logic behind how they handled it would be exponentially greater. So you can just use the one example, which always tickles me when I think about it. I have to wear a mask walking into a restaurant. Once the hostess or host seats me, I then take off my mask and it's all good. There's zero logic in that. Zero logic. If they actually thought COVID was so deadly that I needed to wear a mask everywhere I go, they wouldn't allow restaurants to do anything besides deliver food. You couldn't come to a restaurant and sit down and eat if they really thought COVID is killing everybody. That's just not the
And they
case.
don't.
Even with this mask mandate, they're not shutting down restaurants. They're not shutting down gyms. They're
And
not shutting down anything.
the same, and not only that, they're actively announcing that they're not enforcing it. Oh, we're not
And you can still go see a Travis Scott concert, and you can do this.
Enforcing it, but we hope that citizens will do it. And while at the same time, these same governors and government officials who make these mandates, then you'll see them literally the same night at a club, no mask. You know, our children are masked all day, and then these fucking officials who the next day are somewhere in a massive rooms of people not. And so these are the things that I fight against. This is not okay. We cannot, and everyone got rallied behind for the greater. Oh, you're selfish. Oh, it's for the greater. No, you're fucking selfish. Pay attention. Open your eyes. Open your ears. Pay attention to what's going on. It's all bullshit. It always has been.
Which
People
actually
are starting
might be
to understand.
which actually could be the real selfishness of it all, is that if you put your head in the sand and you just allow the government or any other entity, the church, right? Anyone to tell you what you should think without you actually doing any sort of real research on your own, you could actually, in my mind, be considered selfish, because maybe if you actually did the research on whatever the thing might be, you actually might end up on the side that could be considered right.
Well,
Right?
can you see how the entire, I mean, it was this beautiful machine and all the cogs in the machine that kept it going. You know, one of them was putting a smear campaign on people that think for themselves. You know, even in the media, they referred to them as Trump tards who got all their information from Facebook, and all these stupid people who think for themselves. They're all anti-vaxxers, right? So there's a smear campaign. That was a great cog in the machine that really, so, you know, people, I don't want to be a fucking Trump tard. I'm not a Trump tard. I'm Democrat. I don't get I listen to CDC. I don't get my information on my own, you know, without astronomical suggestions about
but
people.
You realize that there's just touching on that for a second, you realize there's a much deeper thing going on there, right? With the whole calling people Trump tards and all this kind of stuff. That wasn't just a Democrat Republican exercise. That was a lot of Republicans as well who hated Trump and what Trump stood for, and the people that supported Trump wanting to differentiate themselves from people who supported Trump. So you can't necessarily just give credit to Democrats for that.
I'm not.
Because
it doesn't even matter who says it. The point is that everyone kind of wants to, for people who are starting to wake up, like, oh, really? So everybody's all in it together to make this massive conspiracy. You know, no, but you can see how different things, and people can use agendas, and they become different cogs in this entire machine, self-serving cogs in this entire machine. And one of them like that was the smear campaign on critical thought, right? And another one was, where was I going to say it there? I mean, there's so many, but I mean, it's just a way that they have really found a way to get people to not think. And when they haven't thought for so long because they've been scared, and when you're scared, there's literally a biological responses, something about your amygdala, like right when we're cave people and the fucking tigers come in, and you don't think, you're just scared, and so you're in this space and you fucking run. I mean, they have so many people in that space still that they haven't been able to critically think. And then, you know, like we said, now Omicron, oh no, these same people are still in that space, right? They haven't come out yet. They literally have a booster, and their kids now are vaccinated, and they still won't go outside. I'm not kidding. These are educated people who will say they won't see their friends unless they're outside. So when you're in that space, that anxious, stress space, they can't think. And if you can't even think, then of course you can't get past this. So we're in this, we've in this weird COVID reality for these last 2 years, and I want out of it. And yeah, like you say, maybe some people will use certain talking points for their own agenda. They do. I mean, that's how all of this gets so fucked. You know, somebody tries to grab something for their own agenda, and then they use it. And politicians have, you know, used it for their own agendas and get lobbying money for the, right? It doesn't have to be this massive world conspiracy to have been something that got totally overblown and taken out of hand and put a shit ton of wealth in a small percentage of people's pockets, while the rest of us had to suffer. And we still do, until we fucking say no. And that's what I've been saying from the beginning. We will decide when it's ending. And it's slowly, people are starting to realize that.
So here's where you and I sort of deviate in our thoughts, because I agree with everything you said up until um, we're in this COVID universe and you want it over and this and that. I feel you. I'm with you. I would give you a hug and high five if tomorrow everything ended. But the thing is, this is how the upper echelon of income earners, business people, you know, oligarchs, American oligarchs. This is how it's run, Nicole. You're literally now, in my opinion, you are behind the looking glass.
Mhm.
You can see now that there are entities that basically impose their will on the little guy, and we've just accepted it over the course of a couple hundred
Well,
years.
some of us have accepted it, but yes,
Well,
exactly. I 100% agree.
Everyone's accepted it until they decide to go ahead and take the red pill, and that red pill is swallowed at different points in different people's lives. Um, when this whole thing started, I was already very skeptical of government and all of that kind of stuff, but I was still very much like, this is a disease, it's killing people,
It was scary.
I'm gonna do
and
my
people got
part. You
scared.
and I had talks off stream in which I wholeheartedly tried to convince my friend, right, who I love and didn't want to see, get COVID and
Die.
get harmed and all of that. Like, go get vaccinated, Nicole. Go get vaccinated. Like, why wouldn't you do this?
No.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the conversation that took place circa,
there was a lot of screaming. There was a lot
April
of screaming.
and May of last year or this year. But anyway, and so I still on some level thought, this could be really a legitimate, like, risk for all of us. And it was only in just going on over months and months and months and months and months and months and months
of me harping on and on
and you harping and me reading and you harping and me reading and you harping and me reading that I was finally got to a place where I'm like, wait a minute, like, this doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. Why I'm saying all that is to say this. This is where you and I deviated thoughts on your last little rant there. There's something coming right behind it, Nicole.
I agree. But that's why we have to wake up. That's why we have to wake up, because
coming right behind COVID.
When we don't see it, do you think it's going to end? Like, no. But that's why we have to wake up. We have to, because there's no way, if there's grand conspiracies to overrun the world and or just our country and to make, even just to institute communism, which is fucking terrible, but I say just because, it's probably not the worst that could happen. In order for that to happen, we have to accept. And I think we see with COVID, it's almost like a trial run. Like, what can we do to persuade our people to give up their civil liberties, to give up everything it means to be human, everything it means to be human, to accept that, to call freedom dumb, to think that people who want their civil liberties as defined in this country, people who fought for, to think that people who want that are dumb. What do we have to do to get this, to sign on it? And you can see that they were able to do it. If you understand all of the science behind it, like we have talked about today, the actual percentages, the numbers, how they talk about with versus from COVID, how the whole system is designed to really be too big to fail now. It's beneficial for hospitals to have COVID positive. We can say, why do they keep testing these people? Because it's beneficial. If they get a positive, even though you have a broken leg and you don't even have any COVID symptoms, but if you come up positive, they get $12,000, $13,000. So, when you can see all of that system, and you understand that, then you have to be like, okay, wait, what am I doing? And then you have to understand that you have to stop, and we have to say no. We have to say no, because this is why, like, it doesn't end. A lot of people have compared the creeping measures to that of like the Holocaust, and some people get very upset. Oh, you can't. It's not the same as a Holocaust. Obviously, it's the idea that there are actually Holocaust members still alive today that'll talk about this. It's a creep. in the loss of civil liberties, little by little, and you sign on to it and you say, okay, and oh yeah, we put those people over there because they're diseased and they're gross, and so we're going to put them all over here, and yeah, and oh, we make them wear a yellow thing. You know, there are little things in this policy that are similar and that matter. The minute you keep allowing and accepting the next one, slowly and slowly, you get to somewhere really fucked. And that's what we mean, is you have to wake up and you have to see, because once you say no, it's over. They can't control 375 million people in the United States. Although you can see how quickly we're brainwashed, right? They cannot control us without our consent. So we have to say no.
One thing that I think they ran a very successful campaign at doing was dividing the people based on hocus pocus. It was kind of like I was telling you last week about how a magician's trick is always to make you think the happening is over there when the unvaccinated is really over here.
No, the unvaccinated, they're gonna kill you.
Exactly. So that's where I was going was they've turned it into a thing where they have brother A against brother B. Brother A is saying you're unvaxxed, brother B is saying you're vaxxed, and that's why they don't get along. When what the real magic of it all is they're going to tell you both you have to get vaccinated, right?
Well, and think about this, just to actually support that, actual data to support that. They just reinstituted in this state this mask mandate that we're talking about, right? For everybody. So you got vaccinated, then you got your second vaccine, and then you got your booster. Doesn't matter. Everybody has to wear a mask. This is what's starting to wake people up. Like, wait the fucking second. You told me if I got vaccinated and then even I got a booster that I'd be good. Now all of a sudden I still have to wear a mask. Like, people are starting to, yes, you're getting there. Think through it. None of it makes sense on purpose, because this is not about health. That's what you have to start to see.
It honestly feels like a military operation on a mass level. It really does.
And I don't know. I don't know if this is a great reset or if this is, I do know that however it started, it definitely has been used for personal gain by many, many people who got very wealthy throughout all of this. And we are just a little unwitting pawns, and we have to become witting. We have to become aware so that it doesn't get worse, or we end up somewhere like Australia. I feel so bad. Like I used to want to visit Australia and New Zealand. I never, ever will go there ever, understanding how they run their country now. And I hope it doesn't get worse for them, but they're literally putting people in quarantine camps and just for being close contact with other people. So, I mean, it's just, I do not want that for our society. I really, truly want a society that's free and open. And like you mentioned before, we have been losing freedoms little by little. And maybe that's the whole creep, maybe it's been creeping for decades. And that's what we have to wake up before we end up fucking China. And I hope I'm not against China, but I'm not interested in being a communist country. I'm not interested.
But the thing is, the waking up, in my opinion, has come too late for a lot of people, and this is why I'll say, because I feel like they actually really began the operation again on 9/11, like the stripping of the liberties. And the thing is, there's a line in Star Wars, one of the Star Wars movies, that I've always thought was really profound. And I thought it was profound when it actually was first said, and this was in the 90s. So this is before 9/11 or any sort of the stuff that I would even be contemplating, right? One of the characters is basically, long story short, in the middle of like what we would know as like a Senate meeting, right? All the senators are there. And there's essentially an emperor rising who's going to then basically strip power from everybody and say, I'm going to control everything. But he's not saying this like, I'm going to kill you. He's saying this like, I'm taking power because I'm going to create a safe environment for everybody, because something really bad
for the greater good.
Right. Something really bad has just happened. And now, so essentially, let's just picture 9/11. Something really bad has happened. And now everyone is saying, oh my God, like we need to hand power over to this person so that we can all be safe. And everybody essentially starts clapping when he says, essentially, I'm the emperor, right? And this one lone senator happens to say, so this is how Liberty Falls with thunderous applause. And I always thought, like, wow, how profound is that?
Can you see how that can compare to exactly the last 2 years?
It's literally what's happened.
To applause.
But my point was that this, to me, started 9/11 because that's when everybody applauded. Hey, let's sign the Patriot Act, the 50,000 page memo that nobody has read that literally stripped Americans of any real rights.
There was
stripped your rights away.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, well, yeah, like we know, like we talked about with Snowden and explaining that the NSA literally spies on every single American. They don't spy on other countries; they spy on us, on their own country. There's a meme that has a picture of George Bush in front of the flag and saying, America finally won a war, and then it's like, unfortunately, it was against Americans. And it's in reference to 9/11. It's exactly what it was. We've been, yes. And that's what's unfortunate, is that people aren't aware or don't want to believe that there are unfortunately people at the top that have nefarious agendas, not because they just want to kill everybody, but mainly because they want to make money. Power and money and greed can do anything to any man. You're a man, that you're susceptible to it. But again, we allow it or we don't. And when we don't see it, we definitely allow it. And this whole COVID has been people clamoring, oh, yeah. This is, they found just great way. What people don't even understand is about these companies is that these companies are selling products. They are not in the business of saving humanity. They are not. Like, wake up, fucking people. Like, they literally spent not thousands, not millions, $1 billion just this year advertising their products. Do you know how that comes across? Propaganda. They went on Sesame Street. They go on the news. They buy these spots. They $1 billion in our country advertising a vaccine. That, why do you have to advertise this thing when, if it's really this deadly, everyone would take it, no problem. Like, these are all the little things. There's so many, cogs in this entire machine, but people have to see, and until they see, we can't change it. But it's happening slowly.
I don't even think it's slowly.
Well, you think it's fast? 2 years later, it feels fucking slow to me. And our state is still instituting a mask mandate.
In 20 years and a score, they have redefined liberty and freedom for the country.
Yeah, and maybe
for everybody.
What I feel like is,
that's a short time to me.
They've overstepped here. And I think what that will do is, they've become so blatant. For those who can see, it's so blatant. It's almost in your face. I'm just like, how can they just do that right in people's face? And you know why? Because people still will defend it to their death because they don't see. But for the rest that are, or the people that are waking up, they're like, wow, it's really blatant how much fraud and corruption is going on through this system. And
Nicole, here's why it's been fast and it's been a 20-year operation, because you had 9/11, right? And then in 9/11 they wrote the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act led to Guantanamo Bay and housing people without any sort of legal representation into Afghanistan, into Iraq, which were countries, by the way, that we knew had zero to do with what they even told us about 9/11.
Weapons of mass destruction.
But listen, because there's a point to all this. They told us all kind of stuff and we just accepted it, knowing, right, that they're going into Iraq. What does Iraq have to do with 9/11? But guess what? We just said, hey, we had our buildings knocked down. We had thousands of people killed. Do what you got to do. Then a few years later, we had Too Big to Fail. And they started bailing out all of these companies that every American knew in their heart. Every American knew in their heart, there is no damn way they should be bailing out any company in America for any reason. They've let enough companies fail in the 200 years that we've been established as a country to establish a precedent that if you can't do business good enough to keep yourself going, then American capitalism is survival of the fittest. And if you are not fit, you do not survive.
A free society is actually, capitalism is great when it is free. It's meant to be a free
that's
market.
What I'm saying. I'm saying like natural selection economically has selected many companies to go out of business, and they were not bailed out by the government. Neither should AIG, neither should Lehman Brothers, neither should have any of these companies. That's my point. We all knew to a man that what they were doing was absolutely bogus and wrong. We let it happen. Happenings like this, 9/11, too big to fail, all the dirty politicians that have literally just been allowed to stand up and say, I'm sorry, and then they go on with their day, right? Leading up to COVID and what's going on with this. It's not that this thing just happened and now people are waking up. It's that they literally just inoculated everybody and just completely anesthetized everybody to the point where people just are like, hey, it's what they do.
That's how I felt my whole life, right? And that's how, when people are saying, well, why are you getting so crazy with COVID? You're so crazy. I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't not be. But now that I see how it's going to affect the future for my children, I have to fight, and I will. And that's, I think, part of the reason why they've been allowed to do this for so long. And I think it was long before that. They killed Kennedy. There have been factions in this world that have gone on and done whatever the hell they wanted and created this world that they wanted. While we have been completely complacent and apathetic and looking the other way, because like we said, we had a good enough life. So whatever, even though when we felt something was wrong, we allowed it. But if enough of us say like, hey, no, like you said, the emperor has no clothes. If enough of us say, haha, you have no clothes, fucker, get out of here, things have to change. And I think the good thing about COVID is it's the good and bad is it accelerating the process of people being like, wait, no. And I think that means it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to get worse.
I just sit here and I just hope that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I, in all honesty, don't believe that you are right. I don't believe that people are going to wake up and say no, because you can go all the way back to the 40s when we got into World War II. They know, it is absolutely documented. It's not even disputed among anyone that we absolutely knew the Japanese were coming to bomb Pearl Harbor. They knew it, but they also knew we needed something really big and bad to happen to get us into the war, because there was no support for us entering a war that was overseas, right? So they knew something had to happen to Americans to incent Americans to the point where they would support going to war. We know, go ahead.
And again, we know that now, but they didn't. This is the difference, is that,
certain people who had decision-making abilities knew that back then. Maybe the general public did not know for another 20 or 30 years.
All we had is, what we have now. And this is why I tell you that while I once thought social media was the bane of our society, I'm now beginning to see that it may be the ultimate thing that saves us, because it's the only way we're able to get truth out. When you truly see this, you truly begin to see that. I'll throw a random estimation out there, but I say greater than 90% of the shit you see on TV is simply propaganda. Every once in a while, there's a real journalism piece. Every once in a while, there's actual interview questions that are beneficial. Every once in a while, there's actual factual, the whole story of something. But I am going to say 90% is biased propaganda with people with an agenda or subservient to their advertisers, who are owned by people who have agendas to make their own selves money. And that's all we had before this. Now, without if we had no social media through all this COVID, consider we had no social media. Everything that we learned would be through the media. I felt from the beginning it was wrong. That's just my feeling. How would I have been able to show people what I feel is wrong without being able to discuss and talk to people around the world and be able to find the information that you need to see, like, wait, yes, this is wrong. I wouldn't have been able to. And then I would just have been another crazy who's like, oh, I feel this is wrong. This is wrong. But it is so good. I believe now I have changed my thoughts about social media. It's so good that we have it, even though they have done a they've tried very, very hard to censor in this time, censor any dissenting view, anybody against the narrative. They have tried really hard, but they can't. And this is how what I mean about when people say no, when we rise up, they can't stop us, because same thing on social media. Almost every doctor, scientist, whoever who comes out with an opposing view and yells it loudly, they've been censored or they've been deplatformed. But we're still here because you can't get rid of everybody. And so I truly think it's what's going to save us in the end. After thinking it was trash for so long, I think it actually might save us.
I mean, I definitely hear your points. I don't know. I hate social media.
I know, but you don't put time in it. I've spent the last few months really investing time in it, and it takes time to meet people, to suss out whether they are rational, logical people or whether they're crazy, right? It takes time to build that and to build, development and groups of people that you trust and that, lead you to more truths and lead you to the good references that you can then find yourself. That takes time and effort. So it's not just something for, if you just jump on there and try to read some of the, sometimes you'd be like, oh my God, no. But when you want to, or if you want to, and you take time to do, you can get the information that you need, and it needs to get out in the world. And I think that's really what's going to help change society. Like I said, I truly think this will help correct our society going forward. I think that in the meantime, it means it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, because it all needs to be torn down, all of it. And people at the top of the system who have been able to use the system for their own private benefit have been doing it for so long that they have tons of money. They have, it's hard to overcome that. But the only things we really have to worry about overcoming is what they do to us. And little by little, all the things that we stop and we say no, and we go to our local governance and be like no, and we talk to our local journalists and say, do your damn job and ask the right questions, and don't just be this propaganda piece for Newsom when you're not doing shit. You're not even asking them real questions about, why are you putting this mask mandate in? Our cases are way down. Doesn't even make any sense. If you look at places that didn't have mask mandates this entire time, like OC, and compare it to LA, where we had a mask mandate the whole time, the numbers of infections are the same. Literally, the graph is exactly the same. What kind of data are you using to reinstitute this mask mandate? There's no actual journalist that does that shit, but we, the people, have to start demanding it, right? And little by little, it will change. I truly believe that.
Well, I again stand on the skeptic side of the spectrum, because I believe that what you're talking about is revolution, and there hasn't been a revolution in human history that didn't involve
I think bloodshed. A revolution can take a long time, and I think it'll have to. I mean, I think it's funny, that video I sent you, and who is in Alex Jones, right? And you're like, oh my God, are you a watcher of Alex Jones? And I was like, God, no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have watched his shit. And the interesting thing about Alex Jones is that his show is called InfoWars, and I was like, oh, InfoWars, what? But the funny thing about it is that that's what this is. Like, we are in a war right now, and it's not information. It's a war on truth. And that's what we have to implode. We're in the battle right now. We're, for those who are understanding it, right? Look at the whole COVID thing. Now that you kind of see how the picture was developed and told to you completely untruthfully, and then used to manipulate an entire society. I mean, we're in that war, and how it could easily have led to, or could still lead to, basically a country of communism, if we allow it, as we all give up our freedoms and just decide that we'll do whatever we have to do just to have our government take care of us, right? If we get to that point, then we've lost a war, but we're actually in it, and truth needs to be spoken, and it's not being spoken the vast majority of time on our media. And that's what everybody, goes to get their information, to not be ignorant, right?
But that's the problem with in my mind, with social media and some of these sort of fringe outlets for information, is that the Alex Joneses, because Alex Jones may have a piece of truth in something that he says, but for the most part, anyone who looks at him with a reasonable sort of eye sees that he's a complete tool.
Mhm.
And
But let me offer a
so
counter.
it'd be hard to be led or informed by somebody who I know to be just a complete and utter.
Let me offer a counterpoint. Is
He's
that
just ridiculous.
what we haven't realized is that the vast majority of our news pundits, Rachel Maddow, are spewing shit that's almost as harmful or wrong as Alex Jones.
But see, the thing is, I don't listen to Rachel Maddow. I know
I'm just
exactly
saying,
who
not
she
I'm
is,
just saying her name, but
but again, the same reasonable person that looks at Alex Jones and says he's a tool also hopefully is reasonable enough to understand that Rachel Maddow and those like her
you would hope, but they're
are
not
100% left leaning. So you know that everything that you're getting from Rachel Maddow is from a left point of view, just in the same way that if you listen to Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham or any of these people, you know that you're getting an absolute right slanted point of view. So that's actually funny enough. That's why I happen to actually have liked Chris Cuomo, who just got fired from CNN, because for me, Chris Cuomo could have been just about the only of the major news anchors, whatever you call them, pundits, that literally, in my mind, was right down the middle of the road. He gave it to the Democrats, he gave it to the Republicans. You may not agree with whatever it was that he would be espousing, but it would definitely feel like it's coming from a place of genuine passion from him and not some party line thing. That's what I hate about a Rachel Maddow and a Sean Hannity, right? Because I know that you have an agenda. Your agenda is to espouse your party.
But I'm going to say something. You know that, but most people, I have to go in a minute here, but you know that. But honestly, the vast majority do not, Mike. They just listen to one.
That's the sad part about it.
Well, exactly. But that's why I'm saying this is a war on information, and people have to wake up to see that. And canceling people or censoring them doesn't work. People have to use their own brain and think. You have to have your options, and you have to look at everything, and you have to understand that the vast majority of what we're seeing on our very own television, what we believe to be something that's educational and informative, is actually trash. And we have to realize that. And then once we can see that, now I'm going to go in and look through other perspectives. Now, you even said yourself, you watched Fox News the other day on purpose. That's great. That's what you should do, just to get other perspectives, because that's the issue. I think most of us don't. And whether we want to or not, when we're watching the same perspective over and over and over, it gets to the point of almost like brainwashing in our brain, that we believe that we think what they're saying because we've heard it so often that now it's just like, yes, that's what I think. But we have to find a way to figure out what our real thoughts and beliefs are without the news, because the news is trash. But I got to go. So we got to wrap it up. But yeah, mask mandate. So it's a never ending COVID story in California. If you happen to live in a state where you haven't even thought about COVID forever, very jealous. I want to move there. I wanted to move there from the beginning. People are like, why don't you? Because I have kids and I have an ex that I have to deal with who doesn't want to move. So unless I want to move away from my kids forever, I can't just do that, but I'm working on it. So obviously there's, things. So in the meantime, I'm going to continue to fight to ensure that, my kids can live here as normally as possible in society. Like I got to.
You're jealous of those states. I'd like to live in a country where they have a siesta in the middle of every day.
You can go. You could do it. South Mexico. Go.
No. Way east. Anyway, have yourself a wonderful day, and
I'll see you.
Hey, I hope you're right.
I am right. Come on, man. You know me. I'm always right. Except for when I'm not. But I'm all the way. I'm always right.
All the times that you are right, you are definitely right.
That's right.
But when you're wrong, you are.
Sometimes I'm wrong, but otherwise I'm always right. All right. Talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.